Hello and welcome to Straight Onto Disney, a Disney deep dive and analysis podcast where each week I, your host Jonathan, takes a deep dive into the history of each Disney film and the legacy that they left behind. I'd like to remind you that you can follow me on Instagram at Straight Onto Disney Pod, and you can email me your thoughts at straightontodisneypod@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to this week's Straight Onto Disney Pod, where we're going to be diving into 101 Dalmatians. So yes, we are back to the films. So for the next 4 weeks, we'll be getting through 101 Dalmatians through to the Aristocats. Then the week after that will be San Diego Comic-Con predictions, followed by San Diego Comic-Con breakdown, review of what came out from the Marvel panel. Then there'll be something in between, I'm not sure yet, because then the 2 weeks after that will be D23 predictions, and then D23 breakdown of everything that gets announced, talked about. So, yeah, but back to the films for this week and for the next few weeks. So, interesting times. So that's where the podcast schedule at the moment is going to be. As always, there's a lot of mousekeeping to attend to, so let's get started. First of all, Toy Story 5 is now in cinemas, and I've yet to see it. I think next weekend is when I'm going to try and be able to go and see it. Not sure just yet. We have, as you probably saw, the little shorts across Instagram and YouTube this past week. We have the Hexed we have the Hexed teaser trailer and the Spider-Man Brand New Day official trailers. Woody, Jessie, and Lilypad meet and greeting in Disney Adventure World. Pirates of the Caribbean will reopen June 26th at Disneyland. Harryhausen's facade is taking shape and entrance columns revealed in Monstropolis at Hollywood Studios. We've had our first look at the wetlands recreation area at Disney's Lakeside Lodge. They have announced for Disney Junior and Disney Plus Mickey's Home Alone Holiday Special. Magic Kingdom open until midnight from the 4th of July, and other parks will be open later because obviously it's the 250th anniversary of Independence Day. It has been the 10th anniversary of Shanghai Disney. Disney Springs will permanently ban watercraft and bus access for non-resort guests. So if you're not staying on Disney property, you can't get on those buses. There's a new original song being recorded for the live-action Moana along the way. We've had the final track pieces of the Spider-Man roller coaster at Shanghai Disney are now in place, and that looks pretty epic. We also have the new name for the third Shanghai Disney hotel, and that's going to be the Disney Enchanted Star Hotel. Animation Academy over in Hong Kong Disney has been debuting new meet and greets for Pixar's Summerfest. Those include Rex, Bullseye, and Lotso. And also, Hong Kong has been decorated for its first Pixar Summerfest. Cars' 20th anniversary is now available at Walt Disney World. Disney has earned 23 nominations for the 2026 TCA Awards, and that includes Disneyland Handcrafted and the Muppets Special. Another thing to note, the Disney's Main Street Lego set is now available to buy from Lego and other retailers. I'm not sure where yet, but it's available now. Some sad news to end mousekeeping this week. Tinkerbell's model, Margaret Kelly, passed away at the age of 97, and Tomorrowland performer Michael Iceberg has also passed away. 101 Dalmatians was directed by Wolfgang Refn, Hamilton Lusk, and Clyde Geronimi. The film was produced by Walt Disney. Story was by Bill Peet. The film stars Rod Taylor, J. Pat O'Malley, Betty Lou Gerson, Martha Wentworth, Ben Wright, Kate Burr, Dave Frankham, Fred Warlock, and Fred Warlock. The film's music was by George Bruns. The film was edited by Donald Holliday and Roy M. Brewer. Studios was Walt Disney Productions. The film's distributor was Buena Vista Productions. Blech. The film's distributor was Buena Vista Distributions. The film was released January 25th, 1961, with a running time of 79. Blech. The film was released January 25th, 1961, with a running time of 79 minutes. The film was released in English, with a budget of 3.6. With a budget. The film was released in English with a budget of $3.64 million. And its gross revenue was $303.3 million. Its gross revenue was $303 million. The film is the 17th 101 Dalmatians is the 17th film in the Disney animated canon. And the film follows the film centers on the plot of the film centers on the fate of Pongo and Perdita's 15 Dalmatian puppies after they are kidnapped by the villainous Herness. The plot of the film centers on Pongo and Perdita's the film centers on the fate of Pongo and Perdita's 15 Dalmatian puppies after they are kidnapped by the villainous Cruella de Vil, who wants them for their fur. Unlike many other Disney films that were either set in historical settings or in some kind of fantasy world, specifically recognized. Unlike other previous films that are either set in historical settings or in fantasy worlds, 101 Dalmatians is the second feature film to take place in the period that it was made in, the other being Dumbo, as 101 Dalmatians is set within the 1950s. It was also the first feature-length animated film to be what's that? The film is the right, okay, let me get this right. So unlike other Disney films that are either set within historical settings or fantasy worlds, 101 Dalmatians is the second Disney film to be set within the period that it was released in, the 1950s. The only other film to do so is Dumbo that was set in the 1940s. 101 Dalmatians was released on January 25th, 1961, and was a massive success, pulling the studio out of financial trouble that had been set by the failure of Sleeping Beauty the previous 2 years. The film's timely success is credited for keeping the studio alive from going bankrupt after its predecessor's failure. The film is very interesting, and it's something that we're going to start seeing a lot more, is that this film's story was only created by one person. And it's the first film to do so. The story being by Bill Peet, which I find incredibly interesting, and it's something that we're going to start seeing more with some of these Disney features. And obviously there's not too much production history for this film, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. It's not going to be the length of Sleeping Beauty's episode. I hope. Because there's not too much of a production history to dive into with this film. The film also was signified in the fact that they started to change the graphic style of Disney's animation. and that was by. So interestingly, I'm never going to pronounce his name right. Ub Iwerks, who was in charge of special processes at the studio, had been experimented with Xereo with Xereo. So Ub Eriks, who was one of the special process. Oh, for God's sake. So Ub Eriks, who was in charge of special processes at the Disney Studios, had been experimenting with Xereo photography to aid in animation. By 1959, he had modified a Xerox Xerox camera to transfer the drawings to by animators directly to cells, eliminated the inking process and preserving the spontaneity of the penciled elements, which I find incredibly interesting. And they did try and test this with Sleeping Beauty, but this is the first film where it's clear that this is what they were doing with this technology. And it's so interesting that they decided that this was the film to do it with. The introduction of said technology eased graphic reproduction requirements at the price of being unable to deviate from a scratchy outline style, and that was because of the new technology limitations. Since the line would not fit the round Disney drawing style that had been used countless for years, and that was with the exception of Sleeping Beauty, a more graphic angular style was chosen for this film, and subsequent to the films following, and retrospectively a technique formerly used for tracing live action human characters into animated drawings became less important. So we'll probably, and interestingly, sorry, I just need to move these back up. We're probably not going to see as many live action reference sections now because they've got the technology here now to not need to, which is incredibly interesting, very experimental and advanced at the time that we're dealing with here, which I find so incredibly interesting here. And I think this was definitely a big step forward for animation. And clearly we can see that within the next few years of the Disney animated canon of more animal stories. Another reason for why the look was the way that it was that animators were used to producing the sketchy drawings, which totally understandable because that was how they learned how to draw, how they learned to animate. As the cleanup was done in the process of transferring the drawings into the cells, with the head ink, with the hand inkers gone, the animation remained as the animator drew it. So we're keeping more in line with this animator has drawn this, so they're gonna get more credit for the fact that they did draw this, and that drawing is what's come across the screen. And later it became common to clean up on paper before the animation was copied over, and with time and experience, the process improved. That was very money saving, and considering we'd just gone through the box office, considering we'd gone through the box office failure of Sleeping Beauty, finding ways to limit costs, get things down is clearly something that we needed to do when it came to a company. They had to find the way to remove it. And you don't really hear the fact that 101 Dalmatians saved the company, because a lot of the time, the majority of the time you hear it, we go, oh, it was Cinderella that got them out of bankruptcy. It was the Little Mermaid that saved them from bankruptcy. It was Princess and the Frog. So it's really interesting that this film was what saved them and clearly allowed them to continue doing what they did for decades to come. And ultimately, this film kind of needs to have a bit more of an important legacy, especially in the parks, and we'll get to that later on. According to Chuck Jones, Disney was able to bring the movie. Bleh. According to Chuck Jones, Disney was able to bring the movie in for about half of what it would have cost to animate the dogs and the spots. So clearly, we're already seeing how cost effective this new process was going to become for the company. After the failure of Sleeping Beauty, Disney had cut its animation department, and that resulted in the reduction of staff from over 500 to less than 100. Walt Disney, who for some years had spent his attention towards television and his Disneyland amusement parks, and less on his animated features, disliked the development. The sketchy graphic style would remain the norm at Disney for years, until the technology improved prior to the release of The Rescuers. In their animated features, Exor the Xereo lines could be printed in different colours. And that's it clearly showing how advanced technology was becoming. Unlike many of the Disney animated films, this film features only three songs, with just one Cruella de, with just one Cruella de Vil, the iconic song, playing a big part in it. The other two songs are Canine Crunchies, which I didn't even know was in the film, sung by Lucille Bliss, who voiced Anastasia in Disney's Cinderella, and Dalmatian Plantation, in which only two lines are sung by Roger at the end. Songwriter Mel Levin had written several additional songs for the film, including "Don't Buy a Parrot from a Celia," a Cockney chant meant to be sung by Jasper and Horace at Hell Hall, a march of the 101 down, the one, a march of the 101, which the dogs were meant to sing after escaping Cruella de Vil. To achieve the spotted Dalmatians, the animators needed to think of the spot pattern on a Dalmatian, on a constellation. Once they had one anchor spot, the next was placed in relation to that one, and so on, until the full pattern was achieved. All in total, the film featured 6,459,952 spots, with Pongo sporting 72 spots, Perdita 68, and each puppy having 32. That's a lot of spots. There's a lot of spots in this film. As done with previous Disney films, Walt Disney hired an actress to perform the live action scenes as a reference for the animation process. Actress Helen Stanley performed the live action performance for the character of Anita. She did the same kind of work for the character of Cinderella in the title movie and Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. According to Christopher Finch, author of The Art of Walt Disney, Disney insisted that all scenes involving human characters should be shot first in live action to determine that they would be the experience in the animation process. And then, if the animators did not like this way of working, feeling it distracted from their ability to create character, the animators understood the necessity for this approach, and the retrospect acknowledged that Disney had handled things with considerable subtlety. Considered things with considerable subtlety. And there we have production history. There's not too much when it comes to 101 Dalmatians, because there was only one person who wrote the story who worked on this film. There's not a lot of people who worked on this film because clearly they'd cut everything because of the failure of Sleeping Beauty, and this film bounced back and they brought more people back in. But it is really interesting to see that there was so many people who worked on this film that we know have worked on countless other films, and we'll be diving into who they were in some behind the mouths coming soon to the podcast. But ultimately, there's not too much to learn here about 101 Dalmatians. I think the only big thing I've learned from doing this is that there was deleted songs, that this was meant to be more in line with more of films, and obviously we will be diving into the live actions coming up in a bit, but it's time to talk about the film. Pongo is a Dalmatian that lives in a London bachelor flat with his pet owner, professional songwriter Roger Radcliffe. Bored with bachelor life, Pongo decides to find a wife for Roger and a mate for himself. While watching various female dog-human pairs out of the window, he spots the perfect couple, a woman named Anita and her female Dalmatian Perdita, or Purdy, heading to Repent's Park. He quickly gets Roger out of the house and drags him through the park to arrange a meeting. After an awkward and unsure meeting that goes away, including having accidentally caused both Anita and Roger to fall into a pond, Pongo's plan plays off and they fall in love. 6 months after Roger and Anita and Pongo and Perdita get married, Perdita gives birth to an unexpected large litter of 15 puppies. One appears to be stillborn, but Roger is able to revive it by rubbing it in a towel, because of which they name him Lucky. That same night that they are visited by Cruella de Vil, a psychotic and wealthy social parasite known to Anita from their school years. Having shown interest since a previous visit, she offers to buy the entire litter for a large sum, but Roger firmly asserts that the puppies are not for sale, knowing full well her intentions are to slaughter them for their furs. Weeks later, refusing to take no for an answer, Cruella secretly hires 2 thieves named Jasper and Horace to kidnap them after they were put to bed, having watched a session of TV. The humans try every effort to locate their puppies, but to no avail. When Scotland Yard is unable to find them or prove that Cruella was involved, Pongo and Perdita use the Twilight Bark, normally a canine gossip line, to start and ask the help from the other dogs in London to locate them. The first 2 to answer the call are the Great Dane and his terrier friend Hampstead. Soon, the alert is spread all over England. The message reaches the English countryside at Suffolk, where an old hound named Towser receives the message along with Lucy the goose. Towser then sends the message to the farm of a retired cavalry officer, where the colonel, an old sleeping dog, resides, along with his compromised captain, a retired grey cavalry horse, and Sergeant Tibbs, a tabby cart. After a long-distance conversation with Towser and having him stand by, the colonel and Tibbs find the puppies in a place called Hell Hall, aka the Deville Place, along with others the Cruella had legally purchased from various dog stores. After Tibbs narrowly escapes from the Bardens, who were enjoying sandwiches and watching Springtime, the word about the stolen puppies is quickly sent back to London. Upon receiving the message, Pongo and Perdita immediately leave the British capital to retrieve their puppies. Meanwhile, Tibbs overhears Cruella's plan to have the puppies be made into dogskin fur coats, and her ordering Jasper and Horace to kill and skin them that very night. Out of fear, the police will soon find them. Despite their protests, the puppies are too small and that they won't be able enough to make more than 6 coats. In response, Tibbs attempts to rescue them himself, while Jasper and Horace are watching the television, but they finish their show and come for them before Tibbs can get them out of the house, resulting in a chase from the stairs to the living room. Thankfully, Pongo and Perdita burst through a window just as Jasper and Horace have cornered them and are about to kill them. During a vicious scuffle, Horace has his jacket over his head and is knocked into the fireplace, and Jasper gets his pants pulled down by the incensed parents before both cause the ceiling to cave in on them, while Colonel and Tibbs guide the puppies from the house to their barn. After a happy reunion with their own puppies, Pongo and Perdita realize there are 84 others with them in Corella's possession. Shocked after learning of her plans, Pongo and Perdita decide to adopt them all, certain that Roger and Anita would never reject them. They begin making their way back to London, aided by the other animals along their way, including a collie and some cows who give them shelter and food. However, Corella, Jasper, and Horace are in hot pursuit of them and will stop at nothing to catch them. The Dalmatians arrive in Dinsford even. The Dalmatians arrive in Dinsford, where they are assisted by the black Labrador retriever. Unfortunately, before the Dalmatians can sneak into a van that is bound for London, Corella, Jasper, and Horace arrive, searching for them in order to try and fool them. The Dalmatians cover themselves with soot, so they appear to be black Labrador retrievers. The ruse mostly works, and the family successfully get nearly all puppies inside the van. However, when Pongo and Perdita are loading the last few dogs, ice drips down and washes all the soot off. When Lucky's disguise is washed off by a chunk of snow, Corella takes notice and sets off after the van, just as Pongo tosses Lucky in at the last second and hops himself in to join the others. Jasper and Horace in their truck and Corella in her car, and in a maniacal rage follow the van with the dogs inside. Corella repeatedly attempts to ram it all off the road and a cliff, promptly damaging her car in the process as she accidentally hits a row of trees, while Jasper and Horace attempt to cut it off from another direction by crashing into it. Jasper almost succeeds in crashing into the van, but just as he's about to do so, a panicked Horace accidentally rips the steering wheel from the truck's dashboard, causing it to swerve out of control. Because of this, they end up colliding with Corella. Instead, sending both vehicles crashing into a deep ravine. Comically, they are shown to be well among the wreckage of their demolished vehicles, the van driving away. Corella screams in fury at Jasper and Horace for ruining everything, before begins weeping in fury for the loss of her dream coat. An exasperated Jasper, clearly having enough after everything he and Horace have done, furtively tells her to shut up. Back in London, Roger and Anita are attempting to celebrate Christmas and Roger's first big hit, a rather unflattering song about Corella, but they miss their canine friends. Suddenly, barking is heard outside, and after their nanny opens the door, the house is filled with dogs. After wiping away more of the soot, they are delighted to realize that the Dalmatian clan has returned home. They decide to use the money from the song to buy a large house in the country so they can keep the 101 Dalmatians. So that is the film. Clearly, we can't talking about the original live action adaptation with Glenn Close, who is excel as Corella and clearly brings this maniacal performance to life and the great thing is that the dogs in the film are all live action. They're all real dogs. So it's a really cool adaptation and really faithful to the original film. And obviously there was a sequel, 102 Dalmatians, and we can't also not talk about the excellency brilliant Cruella, which is the original story for Cruella de Vil, understanding where she comes from, and that was so done well by Emma Stone and Emma Thompson. So if you've not seen Cruella, go and watch it because it's incredible. We're getting reports Cruella 2 might be getting announced at D23 this year, so we'll see what happens there because it was an incredible film. Obviously, 101 Dalmatians have appeared in Once Upon a Time. Pongo is in all 7 seasons, I think, from memory. Yeah, all 7 seasons Pongo appears. And more importantly, Victoria Smurfhead plays the fabulous Cruella de Vil across season 4, 5, and 7 and is marvellous in the role. Parks-wise, it's mostly Cruella doing meet and greets and being part of the Halloween nights. It's a big player within horror. It's a big player within Not So Scary and Oogie Boogie Bash and everything else, but she's also quite a fabulous meet and greet on her own. I'm trying to think what else there is. Obviously, the characters appear in Kingdom Hearts, Disney Magic Kingdoms. I think that's really it for Legacy. Obviously, you can find the big statue of Pongo at All Star Sports, but other than that, there's not too much Legacy, and that's really sad for a film that did save the Disney company at a time when Disney could have just ended at Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty could have put the company to sleep, and clearly 101 Dalmatians revived it. And I think we need to remember that at times. So I think this is where I'm going to wrap this week's podcast up. I'd like to just say thank you all for all the birthday messages across Insta the last week. Yes, it was my birthday. Last Wednesday. Which is why I kind of haven't been doing the films. I just was like, I'm going to have a little break before my birthday. And then we'll get back to the films. So yeah, like I said at the top of the video, 101 Dalmatians this week. Next week will be Sword in the Stone, followed by Jungle Book, followed by the Aristocats. So we'll get to the 70s. So we should get to the first 20 films by the middle of July. There's gonna be and then obviously there'll be the San Diego Comic-Con breakdowns because we need to talk about whatever comes out from the Marvel panel. I'll be going to see Toy Story 5 at some point in the next week or so that review will be out soon, coming soon. There's also going to be, obviously D23 is in a few weeks, so there's a lot of like biggie news. Clearly we'll go in, there was a nice little bit of mousekeeping this weekend. Clearly we're going to get a lot of mousekeeping, and hopefully I'll be joined by some fabulous people to talk about what is going on from D23 and everything. So that will be fab. Obviously, X-Men 97 Season 2 begins next month. So there'll be some X-Men 97 to dive into. Chatting about what you should probably watch for Doomsday. Is probably going to be a nice little one to do. Who knows? We'll chat about that later on, closer to Doomsday, and hopefully a Vision Quest trailer. Hopefully. So then I can talk about Vision Quest, because I've got a lot to say when it comes to Vision Quest coming later on in the year. And if you can't already tell from behind me, oh no, you can't see my pops from here. You can only see you can't see the pops from here. But if you've seen on previous videos, you'll know the pops that I have behind me and what I'm very excited about. The possibility of. So, as always, subscribe this video. As always, like this video, comment below. What do you think of 101 Dalmatians? Do you love it? Do you not? What are your thoughts on the film? Do you prefer the live actions? Do you prefer other iterations of 101 Dalmatians? be interested to hear your thoughts, so drop them all in the comments. Like this video, subscribe if you want to see more from the channel. Go and have a watch of some of my favorite things. Like, go and have a watch of some magical moments, some reviews, have a bit of a deep dive onto the channel. If you want to go and have a little watch of some more, you can always follow me on Spotify as well, and review on Spotify. You can leave a review on Spotify, leave a comment on Spotify as well, your thoughts. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at straightontoDisneyPod, and you can email me your thoughts at straightontoDisneyPod@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening, and bye!